Let's have a look at the IPMAT Indore 2021 Reading Comprehension passage. This passage has about 350 words. It's followed by 6 questions. 3 of the questions are based on the contents of the passage. You need to understand what the passage is saying in order to answer those 3 questions. 3 other questions are vocabulary based. They pick up on words from the passage and you have to identify either the synonym or the antonym of those words. Okay, so let's just have a look at what the passage says. From ancient Rome up to the Victorian era, a training in logic and rhetoric was meant to help privileged young men recognize spurious arguments and facts. Some tricky words here, rhetoric and spurious. So, a training in logic and rhetoric. What does a training in rhetoric imply? Rhetoric is the art of persuasive speaking. So, a training in rhetoric is a training in persuasive speaking, right? Persuasive speaking or writing. Was meant to help privileged young men recognize spurious arguments and facts. Spurious arguments are those arguments which sound plausible, but they are actually not backed up by facts. So, arguments which are inauthentic. So, in the ancient times, a training was given to privileged young men so that they could speak persuasively and also recognize arguments which are not backed up by facts. Times have changed, but contemporary Italy is determined that its youth are prepared, as their Asian counterparts were, to engage meaningfully with the present-day version of the forum social media. So, passage says that though times have changed, modern-day Italy is also determined that its youth are prepared, just like their ancient counterparts were, just like the ancient youth, just like the society in ancient times trained their youth to recognize spurious arguments and facts. Modern-day Italy is giving its youth the skills to engage meaningfully with the social media. With the present day version of forum, what can forum mean? Even if you are not familiar with the Roman forum, which was a public gathering place for discussion of ideas, you definitely know what social media means. So you can just say that what the sentence implies is that contemporary Italy is training its youth to identify and the facts and engage meaningfully with social media. At the end of October, 8,000 Italian schools will teach their students how to spot fake news through a program developed with the help of journalists as well as tech giants Google and Facebook. In Israel, the University of Haifa is launching a course titled Fake News. So, from the first paragraph, we get to know right away what this passage is about. It's about fake news. Just like in ancient times, the ancient Roman and Victorian youth, just as they were trained to recognize spurious arguments and facts, Italy is trying to train its youth to spot fake news through a program with the help, which has been developed with the help of journalists as well as with the help of Google and Facebook. So too is the case with Israel. The passage continues. The purpose of these courses is to ensure that public debate, particularly during election campaigns, is not hijacked by vested interests. Vested interest refers to self-serving intentions, any personal stake. If you have a personal stake in something, you have a vested interest that might not be aligned with what the interest of the project is, but it is something that serves your own purpose. So the purpose of these courses, courses that help the students identify fake news, is to ensure that public debate is not taken over by those who have their own vested interests in guiding the public debate. Since the US presidential election in 2016, The specter of Russia and its use of online propaganda has loomed large over public discourse in the West. What's the specter of Russia? We're basically talking about the West being haunted by the idea that online propaganda can shape public discourse or public opinion. So, ever since the 2016 US presidential election, there is a fear that online propaganda can be used to shape public opinion. In other parts of the world too, doctored images and blatant lies have been published by news websites, by so-called news websites. Given the speed with which information is shared online, the damage is already done by the time a fake story is exposed. The voters of tomorrow certainly need to be armed with the ability to sift bare facts from motivated fiction. The effects of social media on the formation of opinion, however, go far beyond fake news. So what this paragraph is trying to say is that there is a general feeling everywhere in the world that public debate tends to get hijacked by fake information because it gets easily shared online and it gets shared online really quickly. Therefore, the voters of tomorrow need to be armed with the ability to sift bare facts from motivated fiction. So they need to be trained to identify the real news from fake news. The effects of social media on the formation of opinion, however, go far beyond fake news. So what are they saying here? Traditional or legacy media is ordered by a need for balance. So traditional media, so newspapers or magazines, legacy media, is ordered by a need for balance. So what do we mean by balance here? A newspaper, for example, has sections that deal with politics, crime, sports, the arts, et al. So there is a balance. The newspaper has several sections which deals with all kinds of news. There is, at least in principle, an attempt to tell both sides of the story in each report. So, according to so all traditional media, they try to present a balanced view. They try to tell both sides of the story. On social media, the only editor is the user herself. Algorithms ensure that people see more of what they like, that biases are reinforced rather than countered. So, unlike traditional media, which present a balanced viewpoint, which gives you all, which attempts to tell both sides of a story, on social media, algorithms ensure that you only see what you like. So, if you like a certain topic, or maybe you seem to have a certain opinion, then it give you more and more articles that reinforce your biases rather than counter them. You would hardly get to see articles that go against what social media thinks is your opinion on the idea. Fake news is certainly a crucial aspect of online propaganda. But for young citizens to form opinions based on multiple viewpoints, they need to consciously seek out more than they are comfortable with. So this is the main idea of the passage. For young citizens to form opinions based on multiple viewpoints, they need to consciously seek out more than they are comfortable with. So the main idea of this passage is that fake news is widespread on social media, and because it can be shared easily and because biases are easily reinforced on social media, young citizens need to be trained to seek alternative views so that they have multiple viewpoints and they are able to have a balanced approach to any issue. So that's all there is. Rather short passage. Let us now have a look at the questions. The writer of the passage suggests that the purpose of education in early times was very different from what it is now. Clearly, this is incorrect. We saw right in the first paragraph that the passage talks about contemporary Italy and how the youth in contemporary Italy are trained just as their ancient counterparts were to engage meaningfully with the social media. So the purpose of education remains the same everywhere in the world. Schools are trying to teach their students how to spot fake news. So this is similar to what ancient Romans and people of the Victorian era did too. So what does option B say? There are similarities in the aims of education in early times and those of today. Clearly, this is correct. Clearly, this is the answer that we are looking for. This is just the opposite of option A. And B, that there are similarities in the aims of education is what the passage says in the first paragraph. So B is correct. Let us just look at the other two options to see if we have missed out anything, even though we know that B is possibly the right answer. The purpose of education in early times was to help students attain a position of privilege. It doesn't say so. It just says that privileged young men were trained in rhetoric. But the purpose of their education, the purpose of education in ancient times, the passage does not say this. So option C is also incorrect. As times have changed, the basis of education has expanded. Really, the passage does not talk about anything else except fake news and the identification of real news. So, we're really not, D is clearly not the right option because the passage doesn't talk about the basis of education and how it has expanded at all. So, clearly, this is incorrect. Option B is straightforward and the only answer possible. So there are similarities in the aims of education in early times and those of today. So let us now look at the second question. The passage points out that an important difference between traditional media and social media is that social media reaches more people. Does it say that it reaches more people? Really, it just says that traditional media is ordered by a need for balance. There is an attempt to tell both sides of the story, and in social media, the editor is the user herself, unlike in traditional media. That's what the passage says when contrasting social media to traditional media. So on social media, because the editor is the user herself and because algorithms ensure that people see more of what they like, biases are reinforced rather than countered. Whereas in in traditional media, there is an attempt to tell both sides of the story. That's what the passage says. So traditional media, there is an attempt to tell both sides of the story. Right. So coming back to our question, the important difference between traditional media and social media is that social media reaches more people, which is more audiences. Traditional media tries to present different points of view. This is certainly what it says. Social media is more balanced in its reports. This is just the opposite of what the passage says. Social media is not balanced. It is traditional media that present a balanced view. That's what we see. So option C is also incorrect. The last option, though we know it to be incorrect, let's just check it out. It is easier to spread fake stories through traditional media. Obviously, this is also incorrect. So the answer to the second question is option B. Traditional media tries to present different points of view. These two, all the other options are in. The third question. Social media is dangerous in its ability to influence opinions in readers through. its choice of news items which are presented. This is what the paragraph says. It says that readers are presented with more information on what they like. They are presented with articles based on what they like rather than what should be a more balanced view. So again, this question is an easy one to answer. Clearly, A seems to be the correct choice. Let us also look at the other options to see if they make any sense. So, social media is dangerous in its ability to influence opinion in readers through its balanced reporting of widespread stories. Clearly, this is false. The passage says the exact opposite. It says that social media are not balanced. They present a one-sided view. They promote a one-sided view by giving you stories based on what you like and not what is correct. So this is option B is incorrect. Option C, its ability to guide the readers to motivated conclusions. Ability to guide the readers to motivated conclusions. This also looks like a possibility. The creation of interest by using dubious facts. This is not. So let us now look at the second question. The passage points out that an important difference between traditional media and social media is that social media reaches more people. Does it say that it reaches more people? Not really. It just says that traditional media is ordered by a need for balance. There is an attempt to tell both sides of the story, and in social media, the editor is the user herself, unlike in traditional media. That's what the passage says when contrasting social media to traditional media. So on social media, because the editor is the user herself and because algorithms ensure that people see more of what they like, biases are reinforced rather than countered. Whereas in in traditional media, there is an attempt to tell both sides of the story. That's what the passage says. So, traditional media, there is an attempt to tell both sides of the story. Right? So, coming back to our question, the important difference between traditional media and social media is that social media reaches more people. This is what it says. Traditional media tries to present different points of view. This is certainly what it says. Social media is more balanced in its reports. This is just the opposite of what the passage says. Social media is not balanced. It is traditional media that present a balanced view. That's what we see. So option C is also incorrect. The last option, though we know it to be incorrect, let's just check it out. It is easier to spread fake stories through traditional media. Obviously, this is also incorrect. So the answer to the second question is option B. Traditional media tries to present different points of view. These two, all the other options are in. Social media is dangerous in its ability to influence opinion in readers' through its choice of news items which are presented, its balanced reporting of wide-ranging stories, its ability to guide the reader to motivated conclusions, the creation of interest using dubious facts. Well, it's a rather tricky question. Right away we can see that option D is incorrect. This is something that we've already discussed. Social media not balanced. So balanced reporting of wide-ranging stories is not something that is applicable in case of social media. So balanced reporting clearly indicates that option B is incorrect. Let's also look at option D, the creation of interest using dubious facts. Option D, this seems to suggest that social media only use dubious facts to create interest. That's not right, is it? passage does talk about fake news, but that's not the only news that is circulated on social media. The passage does not imply that social media only create interest by using dubious facts. So this is also not right. Now between A and C, both of them look somewhat convincing. Social media is dangerous in its ability to influence opinion in readers through its choice of the news items which are presented. That sounds right, doesn't it? If you look at what the passage says, so this is where it says, on social media, the only editor is the user herself. Algorithms ensure that people see only more of what they like, that biases are reinforced rather than countered. So this is the main idea. Algorithms ensure that people see more of what they like, that biases are reinforced rather than countered. So this is clearly talking about the choice of news items which are presented. So you can say option A rephrases this line. Algorithms ensure that people see more of what they like. In other words, they influence the choice of news items which are presented. So option A sounds about right. What does option C say? Its ability to guide the reader to motivated conclusions. Now, motivated conclusions is something the passage does talk about. It talks about the specter of Russia on the US elections and so on. But then, social media is dangerous in its ability to influence opinion in readers through its ability to guide the reader to motivated conclusions. If you completed this sentence, that doesn't sound right, does it? Social media is dangerous in its ability to influence opinion in readers through its ability to guide the reader. You don't normally frame a sentence like that. That's a bit awkward. Also, if you're talking about motivated conclusions and guiding the reader to motivated conclusions, whose motives? This suggests that social media have agency. Do social media have agency? Can they actually guide the reader to some motive that they have in mind? That's not what the passage says. The passage simply says that algorithms reinforce biases. So, if you're talking about biases which are reinforced, that is based on the choice of the news items which are presented. So, between A and C, we see that A is more apt. Social media can influence the choice of the news items which are presented and thereby they can reinforce biases. Whereas option C says social media has the ability to guide the reader to some motivated conclusions. So, in this case, it's not clear whose motives, and also do social media have the agency to guide the reader. Both of these are points which go against option C. So, between A and C, though C is close, A is more apt. So, we go with option A. So now we come to the questions which are vocabulary based. Vested interests means hidden purpose, popular interest, self-serving intentions, profitable motives. Now, vested interest, like we saw, it means something, a hidden, something that is self-serving. Self-serving intentions are when you have a vested in some interest in something, you have a personal stake in it, so you try to guide the opinion towards what serves your purpose rather than what's the real purpose of the project. So, vested interest means self-serving intentions. Remember that a vested interest could be a hidden purpose. It may well be a hidden purpose, but between these two, between A and C, C is a better definition of what a vested interest is. Vested interests are self-serving intentions. The antonym for spurious in paragraph 1. Antonym, you're looking for the opposite of the word spurious. Spurious, like I said, is something that is false, that is not backed up by data. So the opposite of false, genuine. These are easy questions. Just if you know the synonym and antonym, you can quickly answer these questions within the given time. The writer of the passage calls social media the present-day version of the Roman Forum because it is a space form. Carrying out political propaganda, discussing ideas, nurturing political ambitions, spreading spurious arguments. Okay, so like I said, when we were discussing the passage, a forum is a place where it's a public gathering place where ideas were discussed. So that's the real meaning of Roman Forum. It was a place where people gathered, where the public gathered, and they could discuss and debate. So the writer of the passage calls social media the present-day version of the Roman Forum because it's a place for discussing ideas. Carrying out political propaganda, this is incorrect because a Roman Forum need not, the ideas discussed need not always have been politically motivated. So A is not correct. C is incorrect because, again, it implies something. This is something similar to A, carrying out political propaganda, nurturing political ambitions. That wasn't the purpose of the forum. The forum was a place for discussing ideas. So the social media too, according to the passage, is a place where you can discuss ideas. Spreading spurious arguments, this wasn't the purpose of the Roman Forum. So D is also incorrect. So the last three questions that you have here based on your understanding of English. So these are questions that you can attempt quite quickly once you have read the passage. Let's move on to question number 28. This is a vocab based question. The impatient and intolerant mother made every effort to domineer her children, dominate the child's lives, denominate her children, dominion her children. Well, we have four similar sounding words here. You need to know the difference between the meanings of these words in order to choose the right answer. Well, domineer. Domineer means to bully. So this sounds right. The impatient and intolerant mother made every effort to bully her children. Yes, that sounds right. So option A sounds right. Dominate the child's lives. Clearly this is incorrect because if you look, dominate is to exercise control over something. So yeah, so dominate is fine, but then dominate the child's lives. We all have only one life. So dominate a single child's lives doesn't make sense. So option B is incorrect. Denominate her children. Well, denomination. You've heard of currency denominations, right? So like for example, you could say bonds are denominated in US dollars or something like that. So denominate is a word that deals with, marking the price of an asset in a certain currency. So denominate is incorrect. Finally, we have option 4, which is dominion. Dominion is a word that means, dominion is actually a noun. It means territory which is, territory over which there is some control exercise. So dominion is actually a noun. It doesn't even fit in this sentence. So this is also incorrect. So domineer her children is the right answer. The impatient and intolerant mother made every effort to domineer her children, bully or, exercise excessive control over her children. To avoid ecological issues, scientists and government agencies consider how sustainable development affects the citizen affects the citizen, is affective to the citizen, is affectionate to the citizen. Again, we have 4 similar sounding words here. Affect and affect, these are words which are often confused. Affect is actually a noun. It is the result of being affected by something. So affect is a verb, which means to impact or change. So affects the citizen is not possible. You are trying to use a noun like a verb. That's not correct. Affects the citizen is correct. Affects means to change or impact, have an impact on the citizen. Is affective to the citizen. This word affective is a scientific term used in psychiatry. It relates to moods and disorders and so on. You cannot use it like this. This is not the right usage of the word. It's affectionate. We are all aware of the word affectionate. It means loving. So is affectionate to the citizen is obviously incorrect. Sustainable development is not affectionate to the citizen. It just affects the citizen. I now have more productive time during the day because I keep the office gossips at a foot away, at arm's length, at base length, out of harm's way. Well, you can rule out options A and C right away. These are not correct idiomatic expressions. To keep someone at arm's length is to maintain distance from them. So this makes sense. Option B is the right answer. To keep someone at arm's length is to maintain distance. To keep someone out of harm's way is to protect them from harm. I keep the office gossips protected from harm. Doesn't make sense, does it? So option B is the right answer. We need to cut down our expenses so that we are able to make ends meet, tie up the loose ends, be more philanthropic, be tax compliant. Well, we have 2 idioms here. To make ends meet is to manage within the available resources. So this one sounds right. This idiom, to make ends meet, is to manage within available resources. To tie up loose ends is to make sure that some work is completed properly without any pending aspects. So this doesn't make sense here. We need to cut down our expenses to tie up loose ends. No, it doesn't make sense here. To be more philanthropic. Philanthropy is a word that is associated with charity. Doesn't make sense here. Be tax compliant. What does cutting down expenses have to do with being able to be tax compliant? It doesn't make sense. So option D is also incorrect. The correct answer is we need to cut down our expenses so that we are able to make ends meet. A portion of the house collapsed because the contractor dashed and built it with very poor quality materials. Our options are shortchanged places, cut corners, bit the bullet, and made a fortune. Well, to shortchange someone is to give them back less than what they are worth. Literally, to shortchange is not give back the right amount of change. So, shortchanged places doesn't make sense at all. This is clearly incorrect. To cut corners is to compromise. Probably in this case, so this is the right answer because a portion of the house collapsed because the contractor has compromised and built it with very poor quality materials. So option B is the right idiom. Let us look at the other 2 options. Bit the bullet. Okay. When someone bites the bullet, it means they are starting on a course of action that they have postponed for a long time. Maybe going on a diet or something like that. You've been planning to do it, but you have not started yet. When you bite the bullet, it means that you've started taking action on whatever you planned or postponed for a long time. So this is not the correct idiom to use in this particular context. The contractor made a fortune and built it with very poor quality materials. Well, The contractor might have made a fortune, but the house did not collapse because he made a fortune. It collapsed because he built it with very poor quality materials. Made a fortune does not fit in the given plan. So cut corners is the right option. Our team won every single match that they played since January. They seem to be rolling in luck, rolling in money, on a roller coaster. But rolling in luck, when there's no such idiom. To roll in money, if somebody is rolling in money, he has large quantities of it, but the team did not win every single match because they had large quantities of money, or they were suddenly getting lots of money. So option B is incorrect. To be on a roll is to have a good streak, to have a lot of good luck and maybe success. So to be on a roll sounds right. They seem to be on a roll. On a roller coaster, hopefully not. Team cannot win every single match if they are on a roller coaster. Everyone knows what a roller coaster is. So if you're having a roller coaster ride, you're going up and down. So that's not the right option here. We now move to the grammar based questions. The first one is a rather long sentence. It has one underlined part which is incorrect. You have to figure out which of these 4 given options fits in the sentence instead of the given underlined part. Okay, so let's try to make sense of what the sentence says first. Other politicians may have claims to seniority over their peers based on their accomplishments and their ability to lead campaigns, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is often described as merely being a junior member of the House of Representatives, has an unparalleled seniority over all of them by virtue of her prowess in social media management. So what are they trying to say here? Peers are equal, right? So when can you claim seniority over peers? Usually other politicians claim seniority over peers because of their accomplishments or because of their ability to lead campaigns. So these are the 2 things that usually politicians use to claim seniority over their peers. But in the case of Alexandria, who is merely a junior member of the House of Representatives, she has an unparalleled seniority over all of her peers. Why? Because of her prowess, which is her, what can you say? Prowess is her exceptional ability, exceptional talent in social media management. So Alexandria, though a junior member of the House of Representatives, can claim superiority over all her peers because she has excellent social media management skills. That's what the sentence means. Okay, so described as merely being a junior member of the House of Representatives. Now, what's wrong with the underlined part? When you describe something, describe as should be followed by a noun or a noun phrase. You describe someone or something as something else. This should be followed by a noun or a noun phrase. But in this case, described as merely being a junior member. So the merely being bit is incorrect actually. This part is totally unnecessary and it is incorrect. Described as a junior member, described as a mere junior member of the House of Representatives, that makes the best sense. So described as, that's option D. Described as a mere junior member of the House of Representatives. Now this is the correct option. Described as merely being is incorrect usage, so you rule out A right away, and described for is again incorrect, so C is also correct, not the right answer. Described as being a merely junior member. Now you can think of the word merely as equivalent to just. So described as being a merely junior member, no. Being a just junior member doesn't make sense. Described as being a junior member. is what it should say. So option D is also incorrect. The correct answer is described as a mere junior member of the House of Representatives. Mere is the adjective to junior member. It describes what kind of a junior member she is. She's a mere junior member. So option D is the right answer. Although the coastal city of Kundapur was once home to a flourishing maritime trade, their economy has been dependent in more recent years on the cotton, textile and sugar industries. Now, what's wrong with the underlined part? We're talking about the coastal city of Kundapur, the economy of the coastal city of Kundapur. We're talking about the city's economy. Now, a city's economy, when you want to talk about it and replace this with a pronoun, something that belongs to the city's economy, you replace it with its economy. City is a singular noun. The pronoun that is associated with it is it, and when you're talking about the city's economy, it becomes its economy. So you cannot say their economy, that's where the mistake lies. So its economy has in more recent years depended is the right answer. Now, what's the difference between options A and B? Its and the it with the apostrophe, yes, these are two commonly confused terms. Its is a pronoun. It's a possessive pronoun, singular possessive pronoun, whereas this it's with an apostrophe. This is a contraction. Contraction meaning it is equivalent to it is. So when you say it and put an apostrophe and write a yes, it means it is. So it is economy has dependent in more recent years doesn't make any sense, does it? So you cannot use the apostrophe with the it's there. So that's why option A is incorrect. The economy has in more recent years depended. Now this is also incorrect because you clearly need a pronoun here. Although the coastal city of Kundapur was once home to a flourishing maritime trade, the economy, you cannot say the economy. You have to talk about what economy in particular, the city's economy. So cannot use the article the here. That's why option C is incorrect. Their economy has dependent in more recent years. This is also incorrect. Like we said, there cannot be used. We are talking about a singular noun. So you replace it with a singular pronoun, not there, which is a plural pronoun. Due to the progress in the field of modern medicine and advances in nutrition and hygiene, less people die every year from infectious diseases than ever before. Now, lots of mistakes in the underlying part. Why is the underlying part incorrect? Now, first you have to understand the difference between fewer and less. Fewer is used with countable nouns, whereas less is used with uncountable nouns. So less people, you can count people, right? So less people is incorrect. So you should say fewer people. Few people die every year from infectious diseases than ever before. Then is a word that is associated with time. You cannot say then ever before. Than ever before is what you're looking at. So this is a different word altogether. You cannot say then here. Fewer people die every year from infectious diseases than ever before. So let us look at the option which corrects both these errors. That is option C. Option C. Option A uses fewer but then uses the word then. So this is incorrect. Option B continues to use less. And why is option D incorrect? Because every year, due to the progress in the field of modern medicine and advances in nutrition and hygiene, every year fewer people die from infectious diseases than have ever before. than have. It's clumsy and grammatically incorrect. So that's why option B is wrong. We now move on to paragraph based questions. So each of the given paragraphs has a sentence missing which is indicated by blank. So we have a blank here right at the end of the paragraph. Okay. From the choices given below each paragraph, choose the sentence that seems most logically appropriate to complete the paragraph. So we have 4 choices following the blank, and you have to choose which of these sentences fits in the given blank. Okay. So let's read the paragraph now. Captive breeding has helped revive wildlife such as the Eurasian beaver, the cheetah, and the Arabian ox. Several species have been reintroduced into locations in order that the ecological balance is restored. When herbivorous bandicoots were set free in the wild, they dug the ground and redistributed dry leaves and branches, reducing the chance of bushfires. But some predators may overhunt or threaten vulnerable species. So where is the paragraph leading to? Let's look at what's the main idea here. Captive breeding and release to the wild. Captive breeding, according to the paragraph, has helped to revive wildlife. It has helped. So they have given some examples where it has helped to revive the wildlife. Several of these species have been captively bred and then reintroduced into locations so that the ecological balance is restored. Right? So then the paragraph goes on to give us an example. When a particular herbivorous animal, herbivorous bandicoot, some herbivorous animal was set free in the wild, they dug the ground and they redistributed dry leaves and branches, reducing the chance of bushfires. So this is one example. What happened when the animal was captively bred and then reintroduced into the wild? Then there's a slight change. What does the paragraph then go on to say? It says, but some predators may overhunt or threaten other vulnerable species. So here we were talking about the example. We were talking about a herbivorous animal which actually reduced the chance of bushfires by digging up the soil and redistributing the dry leaves and branches. So this is one animal which seems to have benefited from the captive breeding and being let into the wild, and the ecosystem has also benefited. But some predators, what predators are we talking about? Predators which are captively bred. So some of these, if you're breeding predators like for example the cheetah, and you release them in the wild, those animals may overhunt or they may threaten other vulnerable species which is already there in the ecosystem. So in this case, what should we do? How should the paragraph continue? Let's see. Hence, wildlife conservationists should revive more of herbivorous animals and enrich the ecosystems. So is that what the paragraph is trying to say? This sounds wrong, doesn't it? Should wildlife conservationists revive more of herbivorous animals? Is that what they are trying to say? They're just saying that one herbivorous, they're given a case where a herbivorous animal has helped restore the environment, restore the balance in the ecosystem. But right at the beginning, the paragraph talks about 3 cases: the Eurasian beaver, the cheetah. So clearly it's talking about a predator which has helped to revive wildlife. So they're not trying to say that predators must not be reintroduced or that only herbivorous animals should be reintroduced to the wild. They are just saying that when you are introducing predators, there are other issues that you have to keep in mind, namely that predators may overhunt or threaten other vulnerable species. So option A is incorrect. We are not suggesting that only herbivorous animals should be revived. Option B. Conservation of carnivorous animals is complex and could be dangerous. to so many other vulnerable species. Now, this is something like option A. So here too, we're talking about conservation of, this is totally against the conservation of carnivorous animals. Saying that conservation of carnivorous animals is complex, it's dangerous to other vulnerable species. It seems to suggest that it should not be done. Same as A, we ruled it out for the same reason. The paragraph is not suggesting that carnivorous animals should not be captively bred and released back to the wild. That's not what they're saying. So options A and B are incorrect. Let's look at the third option. The revival of the ecosystem, therefore, depends upon the eating habits of the animal introduced therein. Now, this seems apt. If it is a herbivore, you might just, you have to think about whether the animal is a herbivore or a predator, whether it's a herbivore or a carnivore. And the revival of the ecosystem depends upon the eating habits of the animal that has been introduced. That's what the paragraph is trying to say. It says that in case of the herbivorous bandicoots, they reduce the chance of bushfires, they benefited the system, but in case of predators, you have to be careful. Why? So the revival of the ecosystem depends upon the eating habits of the animals introduced therein. So C sounds apt. Let us also look at D. Therefore, all species must be revived and allowed to live in forests regardless of their being carnivorous. All species must be revived and allowed to live in forests regardless of their being carnivorous. Now, this doesn't fit at all with the last sentence here, the penultimate sentence. See, what you want to fill in is the last sentence or the ultimate sentence of the paragraph. So this is the one before or the penultimate sentence. So look at this sentence. But some predators may overhunt or threaten other vulnerable species. But some predators may overhunt or threaten other vulnerable species. Therefore, all species must be revived and allowed to live in forests. Does that even make sense? It doesn't logically follow the sentence before. Option D does not follow the sentence before. It doesn't make sense after the last sentence of the paragraph. So option D is also clearly incorrect. So option C is the right answer. The revival of the ecosystem depends upon the eating habits of the animals introduced therein. This is the sentence that fits well as the last sentence of the paragraph. Another paragraph completion question. Here the missing sentence is missing from the middle of the paragraph. Okay. Postponed from last year, the Tokyo Olympics are set to begin this year. The locals are wary, the athletes are anxious, training sessions are truncated, and the restrictions are extensive. So, big list of negatives. The locals are wary, the athletes are anxious, the training sessions are shortened, truncated, meaning shortened, and restrictions are extensive. Then we have a missing sentence, and then the paragraph goes on to say, yet Japan in many ways is seen as a safe choice. The word yet suggests that whatever follows this is now going to be positive. Let's just have a look. Yet Japan in many ways is seen as a safe choice because of its past experience of hosting big events. It has an impeccable reputation for discipline and the ability to deliver the goods. Yes. So, positives. So the sentence that you have to fill in here has to serve as a bridge. It has to continue the idea from the previous sentence and lead on to the positives of the situation. So let us look at the options. The Japanese are anxious but ready to welcome the athletes. Did we already see that the Japanese were anxious? Didn't the paragraph already say that? Says the locals are wary. The locals are wary. So why would you again say the Japanese are anxious? That's just a repeat of the same idea. So option A is incorrect. Let's look at option B. The shadow of the pandemic looms large over the Olympics. Seems about that. Seems about that. Let's look. If you put the pandemic here, if you talk about the pandemic here, then you're giving a reason why there are so many negatives. The locals are wary, the athletes are anxious because the shadow of the pandemic is looming large. But Japan is a safe choice. This makes sense. The pandemic gives a reason for the anxiety, and it also leads on well to the next sentence of the paragraph. So option B sounds apt. It's probably the right answer. Let us look at the other two and see that they can be safely ruled out as well. The International Olympic Committee has fully supported the Tokyo Games. The International Olympic Committee has fully supported the Tokyo Games. Well, if the Olympic Committee has supported the Tokyo Games, is that not a positive thing? This is a positive statement, right? But the positive should follow the word yet. It cannot come before this. If you were talking about a positive statement, if you put a positive statement here, you cannot have yet following it. So option C is incorrect, because you have to say whole list of negatives and then say yet all these positives. You cannot have a positive statement before this yet. That's not correct. So that's why option C is incorrect. It doesn't fit. Let's look at option D. Japan is going through an economic recession and could run out of funds. Japan is going through an economic recession and could run out of funds. Now, if you said that, how can you say Japan is a safe choice? If it could run out of funds, that's a big danger, isn't it? Then you cannot talk about, that could spell disaster for the games. If Japan is going through recession and it runs out of funds, that would spell disaster for the games. And then you cannot say that's it's a safe choice anymore. So option D doesn't make sense in the given blank. So there's only one clear-cut option that fits the given blank. Well, if you talk about the pandemic, then that gives a reason for the anxiety, and it leads on to the factors that are in Japan's favor despite the pandemic looming large. So option, which one was it? Option B is the right choice. Okay, next we have a vocab-based question. Fill in the blanks. This is a word usage question. So we have 4 options with three sets of words each. The first word is something that you have to consider for the first blank. The second word for the second blank, and the third word for the third blank. If all the 3 words fit a given blank, then that is the correct option. So let's just have a look at the sentence and what it's trying to say. When we think about listening, we tend to assume that it is basically the same as hearing. This is a dash, because it leads us to believe that effective listening is dash. As a result, we make little effort to learn or develop listening skills and thereby dash a vital communication function. Next. Okay, so when we think about listening, we tend to assume. So clearly, when you start reading the words tend to assume, then what you get where the sentence is leading you, what we assume is wrong. That's what the sentence is trying to say. When we think about listening, we tend to assume that it is basically the same as hearing. So clearly they are saying this is wrong. This is a dash. This is a blunder, fallacy, mistake or misconception. Which word fits better? Now, all 4 words are more or less similar. Blunder, a blunder is a grave error. A fallacy is a mistaken belief. Mistake is an error. Misconception is again a mistaken belief. So when we think about listening, we tend to assume that it is basically the same as hearing. This is a blunder, fallacy, mistake, misconception. Not much to choose between these words, but if you had to choose, you would go with D or D, because both of these are talking about mistaken beliefs. The other 2 are simply errors. Blunder is an error, mistake is an error. Blunder is a grave error, mistake is an error. So here we're talking about a mistaken belief. So fallacy or misconception goes better, but nothing much to choose between in these words. So let us look at blank 2. Okay, so when we think about listening, we tend to assume it's basically the same as hearing. This is false because this is a misconception or fallacy, because it leads us to believe that effective listening is spontaneous, impulsive, natural, or instinctive. Now we have a clear winner with instinctive. Instinctive is something that you do without any thought, without giving it any thought, something that you do automatically. Instinctive seems to be apt. Why not spontaneous? Spontaneous, when you do something spontaneously, you do it suddenly or without thought. Impulsive, again, this is about giving in to some impulse, doing something without thinking it through, giving in to some impulse. Effective listening is natural. Natural also sounds okay, so it's rather tricky one. But of the 4 options we have here, spontaneous. Effective listening is spontaneous does not make any sense, because spontaneous also implies sudden to some extent, and so this word doesn't make sense in the first blank. In the second blank. So we can rule this option out, because blunder was also not as good an option as the other 2 were, right? Fallacy and misconception. So we leave out spontaneous. Again, impulsive. It leads us to believe that effective listening is impulsive. Impulsive is an action based on something that, you don't think it through, and you just follow your impulse, you give in to something which is a sudden thought. Now that is not what we are trying to say here. They're not talking about some impulsive or rash behavior. So effective listening is impulsive doesn't make sense. So we just left with natural and instinctive. Natural is okay, but doesn't convey the point as effectively as instinctive does. Now let us go on to the third blank. As a result, we make little effort to learn or develop listening skills and thereby dash a vital communication function. For blank 3, neglect fits in perfectly. So we have a winner here. All the 3 words seem to fit in properly with option D. Thereby reject a vital communication function doesn't make sense. You're not rejecting the function, you're forgetting or ignoring it, might work, but neglect is the best option. So we ruled out A and B just based on blank 2, and we rule out C based on this word reject. It doesn't seem to fit. So option D is the right choice. One more fill in the blank step question. As vaccination rates rise and governments relax their pandemic dash, the recovery of the event ecosystem is happening faster than expected. Event management dash see the number of events and event attendance reaching and potentially dash pre-pandemic levels in 2019. Okay. So what are the options? As vaccination rates rise and governments relax their pandemic regulations, monitoring, resolutions, systems. Now, pandemic regulations make sense, so we can keep A. Pandemic monitoring, I see, let's just not rule out B yet. Pandemic resolutions. Resolutions are official decisions or some such thing. You cannot, it doesn't make sense to say pandemic resolutions. Pandemic systems doesn't make sense at all. So right away we can rule out options C and D. A is probably the best option. Pandemic regulations, the rules that are made to tackle the pandemic, that makes the best sense. Monitoring is a bit dicey, but let's just have a look. Just keep it before we rule it out. Okay. So as vaccination rates rise and governments relax their pandemic regulations, the recovery of the event ecosystem is happening faster than expected. Okay, event management, professionals or experts. We have two options here, event management, professionals or experts. Nothing much to choose from. So let's keep both the options and move on. See, the number of events and event attendance reaching and potentially dash pre-pandemic levels. Reaching, so the event attendance has already reached pre-pandemic levels. That's what we understand from the first half. Reaching and potentially dash. So it has to say potentially surpassing. This is the best option. Potentially going beyond pre-pandemic levels. Confounding, if something confounds you, it confuses you, you're not able to explain it. So confounding doesn't make sense here at all. So option B is also, we already found that the monitoring is not as convincing as regulations for the first blank as well. So option B is also ruled out. So we have a clear winner with option A, where all the three words, regulations, professionals and surpassing, all the three words fit the given blanks well. A short fill in the blanks question. This dash man was actually the dash manager the company ever had. Okay, what are the options? Assiduous, well-groomed, kind-hearted. Assiduous means someone who works hard. When you call a person assiduous, he is a hard-working as well as a diligent person, someone who is very industrious, does his job well. So assiduous works well. Well-groomed, someone who takes care of his appearance. Kind-hearted. Well, all the three words, all the four options A and B both have the word assiduous. Like I said, all four words here seem to fit blank 1. Alright, so let's move on to blank 2. Assiduous, ludicrous. Okay, clearly option A is out. Ludicrous means ridiculous. So why will you call someone assiduous and ludicrous? Doesn't make sense. Assiduous, analytical man. Yeah, we have to keep option B. Well-groomed, assertive man. That also makes sense. Kind-hearted, thoughtful man. Well, that also makes sense. So we still have options B, C and D. Was actually the dash manager the company ever had. So what kind of an adjective are we looking at here? We are looking for an adjective that is in the superlative degree. So we are looking for an adjective in the superlative degree. So option A is already ruled out. Most able is anyway superlative, but we're not considering option A here. It's the best. Yeah, so this makes sense. Is the compassionate? Doesn't make sense. It's not an adjective in the superlative degree, nor is friendly. So we rule out option C and D based on the last blank, because we're looking at the superlative adjective. Is the best manager the company ever had. That's what makes sense there. He is the compassionate manager, he is the friendly manager, doesn't make sense here. So option B is the right choice. The best strategy to give an dash is to deliver it orally as well as in dash. It is also important to dash the employee's achievements in the same manner. Well, right away you have an and before a blank, so look at the options to see if they all begin with vowels. In this case they all do, so you can't rule out any option based on this fact. But if you notice an and before a blank, quickly look at the options and see if you can rule out anything based on whether it's starting with a consonant or a vowel. Okay, in this case we just carry on. The best strategy to give an approval, indictment, appraisal, appreciation. The best strategy to give an approval, okay, to give an indictment. An indictment is a legal accusation or something. It doesn't make sense to give an indictment. Nobody says that. I mean, that's incorrect. So you rule out option B right away. To give an appraisal. Okay. To give an appreciation. We don't give appreciation. I mean, appreciation is not something that is countable. So you don't and suggest that the word is countable. You don't give an appreciation. So B and D are ruled out right away. We keep options A and C. The best strategy to give an approval or appraisal is to deliver it orally as well as in words or writing. I mean, clearly, writing is the right. To deliver something orally as well as in writing. It makes sense to put these words together, orally and in writing. You don't say orally and in awards. That doesn't make sense. So, option A seems off as well. Let's just look at the third blank and see that C is still making sense for the third blank. It is also important to recognize the employee's achievements in the same manner. Well, that also fits. So, option C is the right choice. Right. The Aravalli range is the oldest dash geological feature anywhere in the world. These were once tall mountains, possibly as high as the Himalayas. Nice. Over hundreds of millions of years, these tall mountains have been dashed to low hills and ridges. Yet these diminutive hills have been dashed to many important events in Indian history. The Aravalli range is the oldest existing, prevailing, surviving, continuing. Oldest existing geological feature. Okay. Oldest prevailing geological feature. Prevailing doesn't make sense here. Prevail is when something prevails at a certain time, it survives or dominates at a certain time. Prevailing doesn't make sense here. Oldest surviving geological feature, yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Oldest continuing geological, no, continuing is incorrect. You're talking about a mountain range surviving to the present time, not continuing to the present time. So, continuing is also incorrect. Right. These were once tall mountains, possibly as high as the Himalayas. Over hundreds of millions of years, these tall mountains have been reduced to low hills and ridges. Yes, that makes sense. Eroded to low hills and ridges. This also makes sense. Both reduced to and eroded to make sense for blank 2. So, we can't eliminate any of these options yet. So, let's look at the third blank. Yet these diminutive hills have been sentinel to or witness to many important events in Indian history. We have a clear winner with witness. These diminutive hills have been witness to many important events. That means they have witnessed, they have watched many important events in Indian history. Sentinel is a word. It's actually mostly used as a noun. It means guard. A sentinel is a person who guards. You could use this word as a verb. I mean, you know how nouns are verbed, made into verbs that way. But then that's sentinel too is not, doesn't make sense anyway. So sentinel doesn't make sense in the third blank. The correct options, the correct words are surviving, eroded and witness. Right, a slightly different vocab-based question now. One of the statements below contains a word used incorrectly. Choose the option which has the incorrect or inappropriate usage of the word. Okay, let's look at the sentences. Naturally, the fauna of the region varies with climatic changes. Seems to be okay. The fauna of the region, the wildlife of the region varies with the climatic changes. Okay. Some plants adapt themselves to a variety of climatic conditions. Again, this seems to be alright. When the last tree dies in the climactic scene, the message in the movie becomes clear. Climactic, notice the C here. This word relates to the word climax, the last scene of the movie. So, yeah, when the last tree dies in the climactic scene, the message of the movie becomes clear. This is also fine. The climactic changes from summer to winter affect the moods of the hero of the film. This is definitely the odd one out. This is definitely the wrong one. Climatic, we're talking about changes from summer to winter. These are climatic changes, not climactic changes. So option D is the incorrect one. So we have one more question where you have to pick a sentence where a word has been used incorrectly. First sentence says, the lives of the little princess in the large castle in the rich city were luxurious. Well, it's a pompous sentence but grammatically correct. Luxurious is a word that we associated with riches. So yeah, it's fine. The rooms were adorned with luxuriant trimmings of gold, silk and velvet. This is definitely the wrong usage of the word. Luxuriant means the word luxuriant refers to something that grows thick and nice. Usually we use it with hair, luxuriant hair, some hair that is nice and thick. You can't say luxuriant trimmings of gold, silk and velvet. That doesn't make sense at all. Let us look at options C and D and see how the words are used here. There were handsome men who were distinguished by their luxuriant golden tresses. See, I told you, tresses refers to hair. Luxuriant is a word that we use with hair to describe hair usually. Something that grows abundant and thick. Yes. The cruise ship was of medium size, but the suits were very luxurious. Yeah, this is also fine. So options A, C and D, these are fine. B is the sentence that contains the incorrect word. Okay, one more question where we have to choose the sentence with the incorrect word. The king was under intensive pressure to protect the borders of his vast empire. Right away we have our sentence which is incorrect. You can say the king was under intense pressure. Intense means strong or immense pressure. But intensive means involving a lot of work. So you could have an intensive workshop, for example, but you cannot be under intensive pressure. This means involving a lot of work. So you cannot say the king was under intensive pressure. So that's the wrong usage. Let's look at the other sentences. The subject's loathing of the cruel emperor was intense. This is fine. Without intensive study, it is difficult for most students to get admitted to any course. This is also fine. The intense debate between states led to the resolution of issues across the border. Okay, so intense is immense or like strong. Intensive means something that involves a lot of work. Right. In all these questions, where you have to pick the sentence which contains the incorrect word, we are seeing two words which sound similar but have different meanings being used in the sentences. So let us look at option A in this case. We called a mechanic to appraise the car before we bought it. What do you mean by appraising the car? It means value the car. To appraise something is to value it, to give a value to it. Yeah, so this is fine. The principal called a meeting to apprise the school's governing board of the progress made by all the students in the past year. Apprise. Apprise means to inform. Note that appraise has got a A in it and this is apprise without the A. Apprise means to inform. So this is also fine. At the end of each practice session, the teacher trainees are expected to appraise their own performance. Appraise used in this sense means to evaluate their own performance. So set value on or evaluate, that's what appraise means. So this is also fine. The soldiers returned to the camp to appraise the commanding officer of the enemy's location. So this is correct. Incorrect? This is the wrong one. You're talking about informing the commanding officer, not setting value on something or evaluating something. So apprise would have been right here. Apprise the commanding officer of the enemy's location would have been right. So option D is the sentence where a word has been used incorrectly. Okay, so here we have one more question where we have to pick the sentence which contains the incorrect word. Okay. The young girl said, I now request our chief guest to come forward for the lighting of the lamp. Lighting of the lamp, to light the lamp. Lighting means to light, so this is fine. I just read that the two men who took shelter under a tall tree during a thunderstorm were struck by lightning. Yes. Sentence is grammatically correct and there is no error in the sentence. Struck by lightning, the word is used correctly here. I believe that skin lightening products have a lot of undesirable effects. So this is the sentence where there is an incorrect word. What are they trying to talk about here? They are trying to talk about products which lighten the skin, not lightening the skin. Lightening. Lighten is, if you want to add ing, you can add an ing and call this skin lightening products, but not skin lightening products. So option C is the one which has got the wrong word. Let's just look at option D as well. The young girl helped her mother carry some of the groceries home, thereby lightening her heavy load. Lightening, again, this is related to the word lighten. Lightening the load, so this is fine. So option C is the one that contains the incorrect word. So we now move to a different type of question. These are para-jumble questions. So what you have to do here, you are given 4 sentences. The sentences given below, when properly sequenced, form a coherent paragraph. That's what the question says. Each sentence is labeled with a number. Decide on the most logical order and enter the sequence of numbers in the space provided. So these are type in the answer questions. In this particular case, we have letters A, B, C and D. There are 4 sentences labeled A, B, C and D. You have to put them in the right order and state which the order is, but just saying A, B, C, D or A, D, B, C or B, A, D, C, whichever it is, that makes the most logical sense. Okay, so now let us look at the first question. In the past, companies with international aspirations simply familiarized themselves with any differences in the legal system or in the procedures used in day-to-day business of export and import. Okay, so in the past, companies which had any international aspirations, which wanted to do international business, had to simply know about differences in the legal system or in procedures used for import and export. Okay. Modern trade, however, demands more from companies. So that's not the case today. That's what B says. So this is A talks about the past. B is talking about modern trade demanding more. Demanding more. How? Today, the companies seeking international success must also understand the people who live and work in countries they deal with, how they think, behave and do business. So this is one point. How is modern day trade demanding more from companies? Today companies need not just, they cannot just get away with understanding the differences in the legal systems or in the procedures for export and import. They also need to understand the people that live and work in these countries. So this is one point raised in C. To succeed in today's global marketplace, it is essential to learn as much as possible about the conditions in overseas markets. To succeed in today's global marketplace, again, this is also about modern day trade and what you have to know, what you have to do to succeed. To succeed in today's global marketplace, it is essential to learn as much as possible about the conditions in overseas markets. So both C and D are related to each other. Modern day trade demands more, B says. How does it demand more? C has an answer, D also has an answer. So this is the second sentence which deals with the demands made on companies today. So if you were to order these sentences, which one would you put first? Chronologically, A makes the best sense when it is put first, because in the past, what did the companies do? They simply had to familiarize themselves with differences in the legal system. Modern day trade, however, demands more from companies. So A, B is clearly a unit. B follows A because it talks about however. I mean, the word however clearly indicates here that unlike in the past, modern trade demands more from companies. So B has to follow some other sentence which talks the opposite of what B says. So A, B is the right sequence. Now we have two sentences which elaborate on what B says. C talks about the company needing to understand the people who live and work in the countries that they deal with. And D talks about the conditions in overseas markets. Which of these do you think will go first? D makes best sense after B, right? Why? Because this is more general. And also, if you notice C contains the word also. To succeed in today's global marketplace, you have to understand the conditions in overseas markets. You also have to understand the people who live and work in these countries. So, A, B, D, C is the right order. So, the first sentence talks about the past. The second sentence says, however, the present is different. And then we have two sentences which explain how the present is different. With D talking about companies needing to learn about the conditions in overseas markets, and C adds to D saying that they also have to understand the people who live and work in these countries that they deal with. So A, B, D, C is the correct order. Next para jumble. Okay, let's look at the sentences first. It mentions a video on TikTok that questioned an influencer's possible views on the Israel-Palestine crisis. Okay. Social media has given us the expectation that every video, every tweet needs to be irreproachable and encompass the lived experiences of the audience. Should celebs always have a take? Asks an article in a magazine. Do you guys even care about the issue, or do you care about influencers caring about the issue? Well, this is a very tricky para jumble. There is no clear link between the sentences. There is one direct, one sentence is just direct speech. It is in direct speech and given in quotes, and it doesn't even say who said it. This is the kind of question that is best skipped. In IPMAT, you not only have time pressure, you also have this pressure of getting the questions right, because you've got negative marking. It's not very clear from the four sentences what could be the right order, and there is one, like I said, one sentence here in direct speech. Not worth attempting. Okay. Having said that, let's just look at what could be the first sentence. Right. Social media has given us the expectation that every video, every tweet needs to be irreproachable and encompass the lived experiences of the audience. This seems to be the most general statement of the ones that we have. So when in doubt, you put the general statement in the beginning of the paragraph, because usually the first sentence of the paragraph or the last sentence, first sentence usually gives us the main idea, gives us the opening for and includes the main idea of the paragraph. So this is the most general statement. It doesn't start with a pronoun, and it actually contains an idea. It says the social media has given us the expectation that every video and tweet and whatever you see on social media should be irreproachable beyond reproach, beyond something that is that cannot be questioned, and encompass the lived experiences of the audience. Encompass means include. All that is to be included about the encompass the lived experiences. Lived experiences, experiences that you're actually that the audience has actually gone through. So basically, the expectation is that social media should cover everything and should the information should be irreproachable. That's the expectation. Should celebs always have a take? Asks an article in a magazine. Okay, so should celebs always have a take? Meaning, should they always have a view on everything? Asks an article in a magazine. So if you see here, option A, sentence A starts with it. What could this it refer to? This it replaces, this is a pronoun that is replacing some noun. What is the noun that it is replacing? That noun has to be mentioned in the previous sentence. The only noun, only sentence that contains a noun which could possibly be replaced by it is C. If you're talking about the article and then saying that it mentions a video, the article mentions a video, only then it makes sense. So we have the order CA because C has to come before A. C talks about the article and D says it mentions a video. So what mentions a video? The article mentions a video, makes sense. So should celebs always have a take? Asks an article in a magazine. It mentions a video on TikTok that questioned and influences possible views on the Israel-Palestine crisis. Remember that when you have a sentence that starts with a pronoun, the pronoun has to reference a noun which is in the sentence immediately before it or maybe in the sentence itself. So A cannot come after D or any other sentence because D does not even contain the noun that is referenced by A. So A has to come right after C. That's when it makes the most sense. So CA is a unit. So we have the order BCA. Do you guys even care about the issue or do you care about influencers caring about the issue? Well, we have no other place to put D, so by default it goes to the last place. I'm not really convinced with this paragraph. It doesn't seem to make a lot of logical sense. The ideas don't flow well. But this is possibly the best order in which you can place the four sentences that we have, B, C, A, D. Don't waste time on questions like this in the exam situation. Right? One more para-jumble. Let's look at the sentences first. In a recent incident, villagers in a tea estate were shocked to find a leopard cub in a trench. The cub was then taken to the area where she was discovered and reunited with her mother. The 12,500 leopards in India stray into villages due to their shrinking habitat. The wildlife vet examined and declared it to be uninjured but dehydrated. Now we have a clear order possible. This is a paragraph that talks about an incident. It's possible to put the sentences easily in a cogent paragraph. This is the kind of question that you must not miss attempting. So which is the best sentence to put in the beginning of the paragraph, which is the most general one? We have A, B and D talking about a particular incident. All of these three sentences are about a particular incident, about a cub being found and taken, reunited and vet examining it and so on. So these three are related sentences. Only C is a general statement. The 12,500 leopards in India, so generally it's a most general statement about all leopards in India. They stray into villages due to their shrinking habitat. So C goes first because it is the most general statement of the ones that we have. Then, so this is, C sets the scene. It talks about leopards straying into villages. A is talking about an incident, a recent incident where a leopard strayed into a village. So A goes next. In a recent incident, villagers in a tea estate were shocked to find a leopard cub in a trench. So which sentence goes next? You could say the cub was taken to an area, where she was discovered and reunited with her mother. If you said that, it makes sense, but then you can't say that the wildlife vet examined and declared it to be uninjured but dehydrated. The examining of the leopard cub should have come before the cub was reunited with the mother. So clearly D goes before B. The correct order is CADD. So 12,500 leopards in India stray into villages due to their shrinking habitat. In a recent incident, the villagers in a tea estate were shocked to find a leopard cub in a trench. The wildlife vet examined and declared it to be uninjured but dehydrated. The cub was then taken to the area where she was discovered and reunited with her mother. CADB makes a cogent paragraph, and that's the right order.